Welcome to my channel. I am explaining a new movie today. On the outskirts of the town of Kettle Springs in 1991, Missouri, a large group of university students are having a party in the middle of the forest, and during the fun, Jessica is playing with a toy box that she has found around the place as soon as she realizes that Tyler, one of her friends, is watching her from afar. She waves to him and sets off towards the cornfield, accompanied by the young man. However, thanks to the difficulty in seeing around him, the university student ends up getting lost and starts shouting, trying to call out for Jessica during his search. Tyler sees some large footprints on the ground, making him even more confused, but despite this, he continues through the plantation in search of the young woman. Suddenly, the young man is surprised by Jessica, who appears extremely wounded, and in her last seconds of life, she orders her friend to flee as quickly as possible, desperate at what he has just witnessed. Tyler begins to look around, and noticing that someone seems to be approaching through the cornfield, he quickly runs away. Soon after, he ends up colliding with one of the scarecrows in the field, causing him to fall to the ground before he can get up to run away. Tyler is surprised by a demonic clown who uses a large trident to attack him, piercing his body and eliminating his victim. Back in the present day, Dr. Glenn and his daughter Quinn arrive in the town of Kettle Springs. As they are moving from their old home after crossing the urban area, the pair make their way along country roads, and a few minutes later they arrive at their new home. Inside, they also discover that the place has no cell phone signal, and during the conversation, Quinn notices that a large swarm of flies seems to be surrounding the fireplace. Curious, the girl approaches, and using one of the iron stakes, she presses on one end of the fireplace, causing the carcass of an animal to fall out of the chimney, leaving the pair startled after removing the animal's body. Quinn manages to feel calmer, and while looking out of the second-floor window, she comes across an abandoned factory on the horizon with a very strange structure. The next morning, the girl prepares for her first day at school, and before leaving the house, she receives a visit from her neighbor, Rust. The young man explains that he noticed the family's arrival the day before, and so that his new neighbor doesn't have to wander around alone, he offers to accompany her on her first day. Although reluctant, Quinn agrees to the idea, and together the students walk towards the school. When they arrive, Rust warns the girl to be careful about who she trusts while she's there, and she replies that she'll do her best to stay safe in the classroom. Quinn ends up arriving late and is reprimanded by the teacher, who orders her to sit down immediately before he can begin his lesson. The man realizes that one of his students has made a joke at him and tells the person responsible for the insult to speak up, immediately realizing that none of the young people will reveal the real culprit. The teacher decides to punish them and starts handing out their surprise exam papers. Trying to calm the situation, Janet tells him that it wouldn't be fair to the new student, but the man says that he doesn't care since the young woman was late for her class. Upon hearing this, Quinn explains that she had received the wrong classroom location, which is why she was a few minutes late. However, this only angers the teacher even more, who tells her that his student will be in detention at the end of the day, and the punishment makes Cole indignant, so he tries to defend his classmate. Despite this, the student ends up receiving detention along with Quinn, and at that moment the students realize that the tests are just another prank, which show images of the teacher's profile on social networking apps. Desperate, the man rushes to get the papers out of the students' hands, but it's no use, as several of them have managed to record the whole situation on their cell phones. Later, Quinn meets up with some of the students in her class, and Janet explains that the teacher seems to have always hated the class, so all they decided to do was react. During the conversation, the girl asks about the commemorative date that the town has, which has been named Founders Day, and Cole reveals that the holiday is nothing more than a tradition invented by his family. The young man says that his great-grandfather was responsible for creating the region's corn syrup hundreds of years ago, as he owned the Boppin companies, and thanks to this, the town decided to create a date in honor of its great corn plantation. Soon after, Tucker explains that during the celebration, a big party is held where everyone gathers around a float themed around Friendo the Clown, the Bain Company's mascot. Excited Ronnie reveals that they have a clown-themed profile on their social networks where they perform cinematic reenactments to transform the figure into a great horror character so that that her colleague can get an idea of how they usually make their recordings. Tucker shows Quinn one of the videos they've posted where the young man has staged a chase scene with the scary character. Hours later, the girl meets up with her father in one of the cafeterias and is excited to discover that the man has managed to install a Wi-Fi device in the new house. Just then, Dr. Glean is visited by Sheriff Dunn, who thanks him for joining the townspeople. As they had been looking for a good doctor for a few months during the conversation, Quinn sees his new friends approaching the window of the diner, and noticing the young men outside, the officer begins to stare at them. Quickly, the group moves away from the establishment, and the sheriff explains that recently the town has had several problems with teenagers in the area, so they should stay away from them. Soon after, Dr. Glenn asks the officer to sit down for lunch with them, but Quinn doesn't like this idea at all and decides to leave. Leaving her father to talk to Sheriff Dunn alone, on leaving the diner, the young woman meets up with the rest of her friends who are discussing how they are going to buy the drinks from the store without getting caught. Confident Tucker and Matt say they have a great plan to get the drinks, and together the teenagers enter the store, where they run into Otis, who has his comedy show interrupted by customers noticing that Quinn doesn't look like she's from the area. The man asks where she's from, and while they're talking, they hear an argument going on at the other end of the store. So that they can get the shopkeeper's attention, Tucker and Matt stage a fight about random matters and taking their chance. The rest of the group take the drinks from the store and leave the payment on the counter before leaving. Soon afterwards, the pair flee the scene before they are caught, and at dusk, the teenagers gather to party without even imagining that they are being watched by a mysterious figure during the conversation. Matt says he's going to go away for a while because he needs to go to the bathroom, and while the young man is walking away from the fire, Quinn asks what happened in the abandoned factory she found earlier. Although reluctant, the teenagers decide to tell her what they know about what happened and reveal that some time ago they decided to sneak into the place so that they could make one of their horror shorts. However, during the invasion, a fire broke out on the premises, and although the police concluded that there had been a short circuit in the building's wiring, the youngsters never believed it on hearing the story. Quinn becomes even more confused and asks if there is any possibility that someone has set up an ambush to blame the group for the big fire at that moment. Matt ends up being surprised by a mysterious figure who makes a surprise attack, causing the young man to scream in desperation. As soon as they hear their friend's screams, the teenagers get scared and look in the direction of the young man, who emerges with his body completely destroyed. Since he doesn't have the strength to continue, Matt falls to the ground lifeless, and soon afterwards the group comes across a clown holding a knife. Panicked, Quinn runs up behind Cole, but within a few seconds the teenagers start laughing, and Janet reveals that it was just a joke so they could film the girl's reaction. When she realizes that the clown was none other than Tucker in disguise, and that Matt's injuries were fake, she feels relieved later. Cole drives Quinn home, and before getting out of the vehicle, the young woman decides to give her friend a kiss. But the moment is interrupted by Glenn, annoyed by his daughter's delay, and realizing that everyone has been drinking. He orders Cole to leave, saying that he will never allow his daughter near him again after the young man leaves. Quinn goes to her room angry, where she watches the horror short she recorded with her new friends, but at that moment she realizes that the group is being watched by another clown hiding in the rubble. She quickly decides to contact Tucker and sends him a picture of what she has just discovered before he can answer his friend. The young man notices that the clown is standing in front of his doorbell, and realizing that this doesn't seem to be a joke, he decides to go out with his toy gun so that he can confront the intruder in his bedroom. Tucker comes across a music box in his closet, and as soon as he turns it on, he's startled by a small clown that pops out of the toy. Relieved that it was just another prank, the young man closes the doors. But at that moment, he is surprised by Frendo, who attacks him in the neck. Thanks to this, the young man falls to the ground, and so that he can carry his victim, the clown uses plastic to wrap Tucker's body so that they can't find out what happened in the morning. The townspeople start the big Founders Day festival, which is managed by Arthur Cole's father, in the middle of the parade. Quinn meets up with her friends to discuss Tucker's whereabouts, but while recording the festival on her cell phone, she sees a scantily clad clown riding a unicycle and juggling fake bombs. Thanks to this, everyone around starts laughing, and in an attempt to stop the clown from continuing with his weird performance, the policeman tries to hold him back. The problem is that the grip causes one of the fake bombs to fall on one of the vehicles carrying the corn, causing a huge fire to break out. As a result of the fire, Frendo's big doll is knocked over right in front of Arthur, who is furious to find out who is responsible for the chaos. Frightened, Cole and Quinn run to meet their friends, and before they can leave, they are cornered by the sheriff, who decides to blame them for everything that has just happened. So the teenagers are taken to the town police station, where they are held in a cell for a few hours. After being released, Quinn meets with her father, who is disappointed with his daughter's behavior, trying to make the man understand what's going on. The young woman explains about the sheriff's strange behavior, but Glenn doesn't believe her, devastated by everything she has done. Quinn apologizes to her father, who says he is trying his best to please her in the midst of all the difficulties they are going through at home. Matt has his weight training session interrupted by a music box that suddenly appears next to him, but he pays no attention to it and throws the object in his garbage can. However, the toy ends up being triggered in the same way, and in a few seconds, the young man is surprised by the demonic clown, who holds the bench press bar just above his body in order to eliminate him quickly. Frendo positions his saw in the middle of the bar and uses his strength to lower the object towards Matt, who has his head removed from his body at home. Quinn receives a message from Cole, who says he's waiting for her outside so they can go to his party, realizing that her father is asleep. The young woman wastes no time in leaving with her friend, who gives her a music box as a present, saying that thanks to his family, he has access to all the valuable items in the Bapine Company. Excited, Quinn begins to turn the crank, but before she can complete the song, the pair come across Rust in the middle of the street and notice that he is returning home after capturing some deer. After saying goodbye to the young man, the youngsters arrive at the place, and Cole takes his friend inside the barn, where everyone has a good time. A few minutes later, Quinn asks her friend to go to one of the cabins so they can be alone, but Cole doesn't feel right about it and says he wants to go back to the party, noticing that she was acting impulsively. Quinn apologizes to her friend, who tries to comfort her, saying that everything has been confusing for the last few days. Despite this, the girl is still embarrassed and decides to leave the place, going to the bonfire so she can get a drink and calm down a bit when they notice her alone. Ronnie approaches Janet, who begins to make fun of her classmate, saying that the girl is just another student who will be rejected by Cole. Annoyed, Quinn pushes the girl back, and during the fight, the teenagers hear a scream coming from the cornfield and come across Ginger, who comes staggering out in despair. Shortly afterwards, she falls to the ground, revealing an arrow stuck in her back before Quinn can scream. Ronnie covers her mouth, saying that this is probably another joke by Tucker and Matt, so the girls approach while making fun of Ginger, and as they do so, they are surprised by a clown's head which falls to the ground. Right next to them, confused, Janet removes the mask from the human head, and when she sees Matt's face, she remains disbelieving, saying that the young man have even made a plaster cast of her friend Janet, then throws the head into Ronnie's hands, who is annoyed at getting her clothes dirty with that thing. But at that moment, Quinn says that she can't feel Ginger's pulse, so she really isn't alive anymore. Upon hearing this, the pair become desperate, and before they can flee, they are surprised by Frendo, who shoots an arrow through the DJ's head, easily eliminating him. Thanks to this, a great panic breaks out around the venue, and Janet ends up falling over while trying to get away from the clown. Quinn quickly uses the lid of one of the garbage cans to protect her friend from the shots, and noticing that they have been locked out of the barn, they decide to run to the back. At that moment, the trio is surprised by Rust, who shoots the clown with his shotgun, knocking the creature out. Instantly desperate, Quinn says that they need to leave immediately, but the young man says that all the vehicles have been sabotaged, and Janet reveals that the area has no phone signal so that they can find out who the criminal in disguise is. Rust asks his friend to remove the mask from his body, and before they can do so, the teenagers are surprised by a large group of clowns equipped with several different types of weapons. Without wasting any time, Rust shoots one of the clowns, who has his hand removed by the attack, causing him to fall to the ground and everyone else to start Laughing at his injury at the same time, Quinn is knocked down by one of the creatures, and before his friend can be eliminated, Cole appears on the scene and strikes him with an iron bar, knocking out his enemy. Now that they are reunited, the youngsters run to the cabin where they lock themselves in so that they can find a way to escape alive. Soon after, Rust uses 2 of his last 3 rounds of ammunition to eliminate one of the clowns who has destroyed part of the wooden wall. In the midst of the chaos, Cole kicks one of the cabin's objects away, and thanks to this, Quinn notices that the place has a sewer hatch, so the youngsters open the passage so that they can escape, and Rust suggests that they use the gallons of fuel to distract the clowns, realizing that his daughter has left without permission. Once again, Glenn sets out to find her, and during his search, the man passes in front of his clinic, which seems to have been broken into. Worried, he enters the place to find out what happened. But as he does so, he ends up being surprised by one of the clowns, who orders him to tend to his companion's wound, otherwise Quinn will be eliminated. Back at the cabin, the youngsters finish preparing the fuel trap, and after everyone has entered the tunnel, Rust lights the fire. As soon as they enter, the clowns are hit by a huge explosion caused by the gallons of gasoline, allowing the survivors to reach the other side, noticing that Rust hasn't reached them. Cole goes into a state of shock and says they have to go back to rescue him. However, they don't stand a chance against the monsters, and so as not to be eliminated, the youngsters decide to run through the cornfield towards the town. Minutes later, the group reaches the road where they are met by the sheriff. But thanks to his past with these young people, the man doesn't believe what they are saying and decides to disarm and arrest Cole. Desperate, the girls shout for him to take them to his car, but the officer doesn't want to do that and drives off, leaving the trio to continue their escape through the cornfield. Suddenly, the girls are met by a group of armed clowns and take another route during their escape. They try to hide among the cornfields, but end up being easily found, so they have to keep running. At that moment, Ronnie is captured by one of the crazy clowns, who runs through her body with his chainsaw, eliminating the girl instantly. Quinn and Janet then run to one of the houses in the area and enter so that they can hide from the creatures inside the house. The pair come across a lifeless clown abandoned in the living room, and while analyzing the body, they hear a phone ringing on the second floor. The girls rush to answer the call, but the call is disconnected, at which point they come across several photographs of their friends, along with records of evil clowns shortly afterwards. The pair find the music box next to them, and as soon as they are startled by the toy's jump, Quinn concludes that the house was nothing more than a trap. Before they can leave, the girls are surprised by the clown, who was only pretending to be a body lying on the ground with no time to react. Janet's body is pierced by the monster's trident, which lifts her towards one of the lamps, electrocuting her. Panicked, Quinn hits her enemy with a plant pot, and so that she can eliminate him, she prepares to take the trident from her friend's body. Realizing what is about to happen, Janet begs the girl not to do it because she is in too much pain. However, Quinn ignores her request, and after taking the weapon from her friend's body, she hits the clown in the stomach, who falls to the ground next to the girl, causing them both to be eliminated at the same time, devastated by what she has just done. The young woman begins to cry and grabs her keys to leave the place far away. Glenn deactivates the cardiac detectors in the clown's body, and so that he can pretend that he really needs help, he orders the man to hold the defibrillator. So the criminal drops his knife on the stretcher, and taking advantage of the distraction, the doctor strikes his enemy's neck with the blade, causing the wound to eliminate him in a few seconds. Now that he's free, the man takes the radio from one of the clowns and uses it to find the location of his daughter in order to escape the place. Quinn runs to one of the vehicles, but as she doesn't know how to drive, she can't get away in time and ends up being captured by the monsters, who take her to the destroyed factory. At that moment, the clowns decide to reveal their identities, and Quinn is shocked to realize that the criminals are none other than Sheriff Dunn, along with Otis Trudy and her classroom teacher. In disbelief, the girl orders them to let her go, but the man shocks her in response. Soon afterwards, Arthur appears and says that from time to time, the inhabitants of Kettle Springs unite to cleanse the generations so that the town remains pure forever. At the end of his explanation, the leader tells them that it's time to eliminate one more person and opens the curtains, revealing that Cole has been captured. Now, the first to be eliminated will be Quinn, but the group is surprised by Glenn, who comes along and destroys everything with his vehicle. Thanks to this, Otis ends up having his head destroyed by the rubble, while Trudy has her body hit by a metal bar with two partners gone. The professor sets off to finish Glenn off, but is hit by the door of the vehicle and falls to the ground quickly. The man rushes to free Cole, and so that her father isn't shot by the sheriff. Quinn hits the criminal with the electric baton. Despite this, Glenn also ends up being hit and asks his daughter to run while he tries to rescue the young man without wasting any time. Quinn runs to hide in one of the pantries and uses one of the mannequins to distract the sheriff, allowing her to deliver a powerful shock with the electric baton, eliminating the criminal in the same instant. At the same time, Arthur knocks Glenn out with an iron bar and drives off with the vehicle so that Cole can be eliminated by the rope around his neck. Just then, Rust appears and manages to shoot the rope, saving his friend's life soon afterwards. Quinn reunites with her father, and now that they are safe, the survivors leave the site together, and Glenn teaches his daughter how to drive so that they can leave. However, before they can leave, the group comes across the professor, who turns on his chainsaw, once again tired of running away. The survivors speed towards the criminal, whose body is destroyed by the vehicle. Months later, Quinn is preparing to move to her new college, and after saying goodbye to her father and friends, she sets off for the institution. Halfway there, she finds the music box inside her car and throws the toy out as she does so. The little clown comes out of the box, informing her that evil clowns are still on the loose in Kettle Springs. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below, and if you like the video, like and subscribe.